Welcome to the second season of Empower Your Magical Self. I'm your host, Leah Wellborn, the Mystic Autistic. I created this podcast because I used to be very, very sad. In fact, for decades, I hated being alive. In 2020, I was touched by grace and I decided to live in joy no matter what that took. The result? I empowered my magical self. Along the way, I was diagnosed as autistic at the age of 48. I also became a Reiki healer and an ordained minister. My mission now is to continue to empower my magical self and to help you empower your magical self, whoever and wherever you may be. In each episode, I'll be talking with someone who has helped me empower my magical self. I'll ask them about the experiences in their lives that have shaped them, and I'll ask each guest to answer one question. What is magic? Join me for all 13 episodes of Empower Your Magical Self, Season 2. Coming up next, singer-songwriter Joe Ellison joins me, Leah, the Mystic Autistic, on Episode 8 of the second season of Empower Your Magical Self. Hello, and welcome to the 8th episode of the second season of Empower Your Magical Self, the show where we participate joyfully in the sorrows of the world. I'm very excited to welcome my guest, singer-songwriter Joe Ellison, today, and I think that you're going to really enjoy our conversation. But I would like to take a small detour first to talk about my book. I wrote a book, Empower Your Magical Self with a 1-month habit break, a handbook for reclaiming sovereignty in 30 days. This is a book that you can use to help you get past any addiction that is holding you back from the greatest joy that you could have in your life, from being sovereign in your life. And it doesn't have to be some big dramatic addiction, although it could be. It could just be a little tiny habit like, falling asleep every night with the TV on, sleeping with the TV on. For me, it was drinking. I drank every day for years, for decades, and it was a crutch, and it kept me from being the fullest person that I could be. And I was able to quit that habit. So I wrote this book to help you with any habit that you might be struggling with, and I hope that you will check it out. It's on Amazon in paperback or in Kindle. Now let's talk about my guest today, Joe Ellison. He is a singer-songwriter, but that's not even really the reason that he's here. I really came to enjoy his videos on TikTok. He's Brother Man Joe on TikTok, and his videos are so engaging, so warm and friendly, and he does a couple of different kind of little series of videos. Like he does 3 good things on Thursdays, where he encourages people to chime in about 3 good things that have happened to them during the week. And he also has a series where he calls Fridays with Mom, where he goes and visits his 96-year-old mom every Friday, and he records the experience, and it's a lot of fun. And he's just a really positive, charismatic guy. So that's why I invited him to be on the show. And the conversation gets a little bit deep because I asked him to talk about some of the darker times in his life because he's always such an upbeat guy. And, he was happy to talk about times when it was really difficult for him as a little boy who happened to be Black, growing up in a neighborhood of largely white kids who treated him terribly. And he grew up in the Christian church and was very involved in the church until rather recently, when he had sort of an epiphany about the fellow churchgoers. And it's a really great conversation. And I'm so happy that he joined me. I think that you will enjoy it too. And hope you'll check out his band, Run with Patience. They're in Eastern Europe right now, touring. And it's very exciting for me to live vicariously through my guests who are in all these amazing places around the world. So please enjoy the interview and come back on the other side, and I'll tell you about next week. Joe Ellison, who I believe is joining us from Los Angeles today.
Napa, California.
Napa, is that where you live?
That's where I live, out in the middle of the vineyards, the grapes,
Cool.
and all the hippies.
I have been to Napa before. I used to live out there. I lived in San Jose. I
Okay,
also lived in Los Angeles, but San Jose would be closer to where you are. And
I used to live near that area too, so yeah.
Yeah, it was like 15, maybe 20 years ago. So I'm sure it's really, really different now. I would
Different.
assume it
Yeah.
is anyway.
Yeah.
But one thing that I was surprised about living out there is it's farmland, just farmland, farmland, farmland. I
Yeah.
don't know if it's still that way, but I think people have it in their heads that it's this very sophisticated, it's like Carmel, like everywhere, but
Yeah.
it's not.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Joe, the reason that I want to have you on my show, you're a musician, but that's an aside, actually,
Uh-huh.
even though I'm sure in your life that is not an aside at all.
Uh-huh.
I feature people who are high vibe people, and I
Okay.
consider
Yeah.
you a very high vibe person.
Uh,
You are a person like so many of my guests who I discovered on social media
uh,
randomly, and soon found myself really looking forward to your videos because they're very positive and fun. And as you could probably, my guest can tell just from your demeanor here, you seem to be a very centered, grounded person, and that really comes across in your videos.
I'm gonna save
Um,
this and show this to everybody I know.
See, I was going to ask you, does that feel accurate from the inside? Because a lot of the
Um,
show is about perception and how people see themselves in the world and how we move through the world sometimes with more discomfort uh, than we would like. So please
yeah.
go ahead and answer the question.
Um, I mean, you're asking how I see myself in that
Yeah,
regard.
yeah,
Um, it's funny because I feel like I have a love hate relationship with social media
right.
and kind of with people in general.
I hear
but
that. Yeah.
but it's like I never like when I started, posting on social media and stuff like that. It wasn't because I was trying to be overly positive or anything like that. I mean, to be honest, was just kind of being myself.
Right.
I wasn't, trying to inspire people or anything like that at all. It was just, and part of me still is kind of mystified by like, when people write to me, because I get tons of like notes and like you said, music aside, like I get tons of like notes and messages from people that say how much they enjoy like the videos with my mom or the 3 Good Things on Thursdays. And a lot of that is just kind of born out of me just trying not to be there's so much negative out there in the world. And like I don't know if I was purposefully trying to be inspiring. And I would go as far as to say that I wasn't necessarily thinking it was going to be something like I want to inspire thousands of people. And it's like I just didn't think that way. I just like, you know what, there's enough people out there barking about stuff that they hate and dislike. I'm just going to do something else.
Right.
And I absolutely hate, like I'm not a very good self-promoter. So it's like whenever you watch my channels, it's very rare that I talk about the music that I do.
It's true. Yeah.
And if I do 50 videos, just probably like maybe 5 of them that talk about music or me going someplace or whatever. And I've been very purposeful about not giving out tour dates and all, because I don't want to be the guy that's always like, hey, come visit my channel and buy my stuff. Like if you find it great, I'm awesome. That's great. It helped me out. That's awesome. But that's not why I did the channel. But it is a bit of a mystery to me, like when people say that, oh my gosh, I love your channel, you're so positive. And I'm not so sure that it's a statement about who I am, but it's just a statement, I think, about where we are in society, that people just like, I don't think there's anything outstanding or awe-inspiring about what I post or what I do, or really about who I am. It's just, I think there's just it's so much easier to gravitate to negative stuff, that when you see somebody who's just not that way, we tend to think it's exceptional,
Right.
when it should be the normal.
No kidding. No kidding. So first, I guess you strike me as a person who likes yourself. Is that
I'm pretty
true?
comfortable with that. Yeah,
And
I think so.
and that's a really, in my world, that's a really good thing. I'm not
Mhm.
like, you seem like you like yourself a lot.
Oh yeah, I
That's
knew what
not
you
the
meant when you
vibe.
said that. Oh yeah.
Right. Okay. Because it took me, as an aside, you and I are virtually the same age. I was born on December 15th, 1972.
I'm actually
You
3 months older than you are. I was born June 19th, 1972. Yeah.
So I remembered you posting some at one point your birthday, or that it was close to your birthday, and me
Yeah.
figuring out. So we're kind of elders on this social media world.
When
I
did that
mean,
happen?
there are people who could like be our grandchildren practically with whom we interact. I am a child-free person, but there are
Yeah.
some youngsters out there who are
Yeah.
like, I'm a freshman in high school, and it's like, holy cow, do your parents know you're interacting with adults online? But I mean, that's how
Yeah.
social media is. Um,
I do that to
so
people in their 30s. I'm like, do your parents know you're on here?
know it. I know. It's interesting to be an elder
Yeah.
on TikTok, and I like TikTok a lot. I find it has a generally positive vibe, more positive than other um, social media places,
Yeah.
in
I
my
agree.
opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, what I'm saying is that for a long, long time, I was a very, very, very depressed person. I kind of thought that suicide was going to be my inevitable end. I
Oh, wow.
was just really sad for a really long time.
Uh-huh.
In 2020, right about the onset of COVID, I considered a moment of grace. I was planning my demise, and just something was just like a light. I don't know what happened, but it was like, nope, I'm going to figure out how to be a joyful person in this world. I have no idea how to do that, but I'm going to do that. So that's my story from 2020 moving forward. In that time, I have discovered my way of living uh, a joyful life, and I have very much discovered that it's very different for every single person,
Yeah.
probably on the
Uh-huh.
globe. That being said, you seem like a person who lives a pretty joyful life, and I'll go back to what I said: feels comfortable in your skin and likes yourself. Has that always been your experience in living as a human on this planet?
Oh man, no.
Great, tell me about that. Let's hear the sad story, Joe.
Well, first of all, I'm black. you know,
No kidding, right? Okay.
and that has its own set of, challenges and all of that. But, and this is a long story, so I'm just going to try and condense it as much as I can. But, you know, um, and I love my parents to death. I do, both of them, my mom and my stepdad, who if you follow my page, he passed away a couple years ago.
Right.
And there's just been so many different little events throughout life that have kind of shaped me to be the person that I am. I grew up going to church. I called myself the church boy for the longest time and grew up sitting in a pew. And that was just something that my family did. Went all the way up until, gosh, just probably fairly recently. And it, you spend, like for me personally, I spent so much of my early childhood life trying to fit in, trying to be, because I grew up, born in Chicago, lived in mostly black neighborhoods, and where I didn't even know what a white person was until we moved to California. I'd never seen one before.
Right.
And then suddenly it's like, instead of just being people, it's like people look at you differently. And then all of a sudden it's like I went to a place where I was the only black kid in my class and people made fun of me, for, my hair being different, or the shape of my nose, or the size of my lips, or the color of my skin, or the way that I talked. And it was just like, wow, it's like, well, there was part of me that felt like I needed to be like every other kid in my class. I needed to talk the way that they do. And I needed
How
to,
old were you at that
yeah.
point? How old
Oh,
were
yeah.
you?
We moved to California in the summer of 1979. And I remember
Oh, so
that
you were little.
I was
You were
super
like
little,
7 or 8.
7 and 8, and it's like, you're just, you don't know anything about that, at that age. You're just trying to
Uh-uh.
be, adults, and you, like, your teachers tell you, it's like you need to behave a certain way, or the pastors at your church tell you need to behave a certain way. So you just do it because
Right.
those are the adults in the room. And then when you get a little bit older in high school, people are still making fun of you because, your hair, the size of your nose, the lips, the way that you talk, or, when they used to show movies in class, they'd show like the National Geographic films, and it was always like the African jungle people, and people would turn and make fun of you because you looked like them, and all like little things that people don't think about. And like, even like going to church, you would think that would be a lot better, and it was just really kind of more of the same. But I never really connected those dots until I got a little bit older. Like I said, this is a long story, so
Oh, no, I'm here for it. Tell me. Yeah.
I'm really trying to whittle it down, But I remember, for me, when I really started thinking about being happy within myself, because like I said, I spent a ton of time just trying to be, for the most part, not always, but trying to be the person that people thought I should have been. Where that was people I was sitting in a pew with, friends that I went to college with, because I went to Point Loma Nazarene University. I went to a Christian college down there. 99% lily white.
Wow.
And I don't have any problems with white people. Most people don't know I do have kids. They're interracial. They're mixed. My stepdad, who I called my dad almost my entire life, was white. And I'm sure you know that already, having watched the channel and all of that. But it's like you just spend so much time trying to fulfill this vision of what people think you should be, because you want people to say, it's like, oh, you're a good person, Joe. You're like, quote unquote, you're one of the good ones,
Yeah.
And I remember it was 2008. And it was when Barack Obama started, he came out of literally nowhere,
Right.
And I know he was a senator in Chicago and all of that, but I'd never heard of him. And all of a sudden he was running for president.
Sure.
And he just shot through the primaries he was literally like a streak of lightning that came out of nowhere. And people were asking me, it's like, are you going to vote for him? Are you going to vote for him? And I'm like, I don't even know who this guy is. And then I started listening to the way that people were talking about him. And I was especially listening to the way church people talked about him. And I could not believe that the people that were telling me that, we should love one another, that God loves everybody, all of a sudden the language changed. And I'm like, what happened? Like, people that I thought were really nice, and I was listening to the way that they were talking about him, and in the way that they started talking about other people. And of course, everything just snowballs. And I'm just like, it hurt really deeply, to the point where it was like, I don't know who to trust anymore, And I got to thinking, it's like, well, who have I been on? And it was so frustrating to me, because it's like, no matter what I did, I felt like I could never quite fit into that circle that I at the time I so desperately wanted to. And I think it was around the time, when Trump really burst onto the scene, not to make this a political thing, because it's not really political. And I think when we talk about, race and fitting in, especially for me, because a lot of this has so much to do with perception. Like, you were talking about how do you perceive yourself? And it's
Right.
like, I was perceiving myself the way I wanted, I wanted people to look at me the way that they looked at their other companions, their white friend, instead of just me as a person or as a Black person. And it's like, I wasn't seeing it. And then when I looked back, and I was reevaluating, like, who am I standing with? And it was, when I get asked about this, I always tell people, it was like, have you ever seen a Spike Lee movie? And at any given point in the Spike Lee movie, when the main character realizes the whole plot of his story, like, he stands still and you just see the room moving around him.
Yeah.
That's literally what was happening to me. I was like, holy crap, who are these people I'm around? And I didn't necessarily have a particular problem with religion or anything like that at all, but I had a real problem with the people in it.
Right.
And then I started thinking, is this how other people perceive me? Because I don't have the same hangups as they do. I don't dislike people like they dislike a certain group of people or whatever. And I'm thinking, this is not me. Why am I trying to fit in here?
Right.
And I literally said, screw that. That's not who I am. And I'm just going to be myself at this point. And I need to figure out who it is. This is where I, talk about how much I've actually learned from TikTok. And I've made no bones about it, that I had no idea domestic violence happened at the rate that it does. I had none clue, because it was in the circles that I ran in, nobody talked about it. It was just kind of brushed under, but yet it happens, and it happens a lot in the circles and with the people that were sitting around me, and I had no idea.
Right.
And so I was like, well, gosh, I think probably about the time when I really became comfortable with myself, I remember I had, because I play music, and I kind of was balancing like my own musical career with, volunteering and helping out in church settings and all that stuff like that. And I was driving back home, and I decided to check out a particular church that I had been going to for a long time. On my way home, I flipped on my phone as I was driving. I used hands-free. I was being safe, And I remember hearing this pastor that I had become fairly good friends with, had logged on and just said, this is during a Sunday morning service. He just said, we don't need any, what was the exact word? Because I saved this video on my phone for the longest time, because I was PISS. he said, we don't need any pansy sissified woke culture wimps in the church.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting there going, did he really just say what I think he just said?
Mhm.
Now, I'm not the world's smartest guy, but I do like to think I read a lot. And I'm like, Black history is kind of my thing.
Hmm.
There are people that know way more about it than I do. But I remember thinking, either he doesn't know what that word means, or he does know what it means, and he said it anyway. Either way, it's
It's
a
bad.
pretty crappy thing to say.
Right. Agreed. Yeah.
I was so upset, and I pulled over to the side of the road, and I called the guy that was running sound because I had his phone number, and I said, "What did he just say?" And instead of repeating it to me, he goes, "Well, what do you think he said?" And I said, "This is what he just said. What the heck is he talking about?" He's like, "Well, maybe we should sit down and talk about it." And just the fact that he didn't immediately dismiss that as being stupid, oppressive, and offensive, I was like, all right, these are not my people.
Right.
And that was the moment where I was like, okay, I don't have room for that anymore.
Right.
I can tolerate a lot. It's not that we have to agree on anything, but at that point, I think I became more comfortable in standing up for myself and being the person that I wanted to be at that point.
Right.
And that was 3 years ago. It was February the 7th of 2021.
I love that you remember that.
Yeah.
So we've had a similar kind of awakening sort of timeline then in that sense.
Yeah.
I call what I have done is empowering my magical self. That's why I call the show that. I call my Reiki business that, because to me, magic is something that we all have within us. Some people might call it God. Some people might call it, energy. Everything is energy. That's a fact. So to me, that magic is the thing that lights me up. And again, it's different for everybody. For me, it's the smile on a dog. It's my cat. It's it's hanging out with my mom. It's having a good hearty laugh at no one's expense. Just these wholesome, fun joys. Roller skating when I am able to walk, and dancing, doing all of those fun things. That to me is magic. So I'd like to ask you now, what is magic in your opinion?
I think it is when the unexpected happens in unexpected places. For me, it's like, and I don't know if most people would consider this magic, but me just flipping on the phone and hearing this guy say some stuff that really made me think. Sometimes it's that wasn't
like
an
divine
overall
timing.
Yeah, and it wasn't necessarily one of those things that are super positive,
Right.
but one of those things that put me
you
on.
Needed to know that.
It changed my mental and spiritual path at that point.
Right.
Where I was like, okay, I had come to the point where it's like I need to really redefine my social circles at that point, which I did. And then looking back on it, I don't know how many times, probably every night I lay down at bed and I think about the person I was 10 years ago and how I am not even close to the same person I am, today. Same body, same bald head, but just mentally and just socially, just not the same person. And I'm actually thankful for that,
I was going to say that. Yeah, it's a good thing.
Yeah, I don't hate any of those people,
Right.
but I don't have time for that anymore, and I don't make space for that anymore. When, people want to come over and say, hey, and I've had some friends from past circles say, hey, you want to go have a cup of hot chocolate? Hey, sure, let's go. Because I don't drink coffee. I'm a hot chocolate guy.
I don't drink coffee either. I'm a mud water lady.
No, yeah. So I'll go.
Yeah.
But, and I'm happy to hear how their families are doing. But almost inevitably, it comes up about the type of stuff that we're talking about. And I just immediately shoot it down. And I do it in a way it's like, okay, I understand completely what you're saying. I've run in your circles. I've gone to your schools. I've gone to, I've sat in the same church pews as a lot of you guys for 40 some odd years. You're full of crap. I love you. I love you. I wish nothing but the best for you, but don't come near me with that. You cannot justify that, with me. You cannot justify your behavior with me, your viewpoints with me, and justify that to what you preach and what what we read on Sunday mornings coming out of the Bible or anything like that, because they're two different things.
Right.
And I just don't have that, no, no, no.
Yeah.
So, and I'm more than comfortable to do that. I just had to do that the other day, God bless you, but no.
Yeah. Do you still consider yourself a Christian?
What?
Do you still consider yourself a Christian?
Yes, but not in the way that most people think. Like, do I believe that, that there is a creator or something out there? Oh, I have a hard time believing that the whole universe is an accident, a cosmic accident. Right. Do I believe Jesus is the Son of God? I struggle with that, to be honest. I mean, if I'm being perfectly honest, there's some days I do, and there's some days where I think, how is that possible?
Right.
And I'm being totally honest about that. And I think any normal person, should question. They should ask questions, and I don't think it's unreasonable to doubt it, because it's a lot to take in.
It is. And to me, I mean, not that you asked, but I'm a witch, and I know that a lot of people who are of the ilk who used to be would be really bothered by that. To me, that is embracing that magic that I described before, that spark of energy, of eternal whatever that is in me, that I know has been here since everything began and will continue on till everything ends and beyond. That's what I believe in. That's what I embrace. And that's what I try to empower in myself and try to encourage in other people. I love Jesus. I think Jesus was like what I want to be to the nth power. I think that he was a really realized guy who was really anti-Roman in a really political time. And his message caught on, but then was twisted later by the Romans themselves to what we see today. That is not really what he was getting at all. And that's my take on Jesus. And Christianity, I'm not a fan of. Jesus, big fan of Jesus. Yeah.
And that doesn't bother me at all. Like I said, any reasonable person should take the time to read and think for themselves. Like I've become such a big proponent of not taking everything everybody says, especially from a pulpit, at face value and just taking it as 100% truth. Ask questions. Any place that doesn't want you to ask questions or to dig deeper into that is a place you should not be sitting in.
Yeah.
I remember one of the other problems that I had, same place, and it was just, when I was just kind of filtering, I'm like, what the heck is, why am I sitting here? What the heck is this guy talking about? And there's a guy, I'll leave his name out of it, but he was talking about something. He's like, yeah, you don't need to be asking questions. Just trust me when I say this. And I'm thinking, dude, you have not that there's anything wrong with this, but it's like, dude, you have a high school GED. Why, you're talking about like ancient history, and you want me to trust you at face value when you can't name a source. It's just quote unquote, trust me, bro. And I'm
right.
That, and I think about how often, like when I reflect on it now, I'm thinking, 80% of these guys have no business talking about this stuff. Because one, how could you know? And then to be bold enough to say that, well, God told me this, God told me that. And I'm like, okay, well, you had better be right. You had better be right then. And if you're not right, either you lied or God did. And I never hear any accountability from any people when it comes to stuff like that.
Right.
And that also bugs me. But yeah, if somebody, like you said, if you consider yourself a witch or whatever, I don't know anything about it. So it's like, how am I going to tell you you're wrong? It's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. To me, it's such the automatic knee-jerk reaction to the word witch and to the word feminist and to the word so many other, I know, right? It's such evidence of inculcation by the school system and by the patriarchy and by white supremacy that is like anything outside of this narrow thing we tell you is bad. Don't look at it. It's bad. Instead, why don't you buy this product I have for you?
Yeah.
Which is what I'm coming to see as I get older, and I would like anybody who's out there who's younger than us, who's probably a considerable portion of the people listening, to know that it can get considerably better.
Yeah.
I think from what you're saying, that has been your experience too. I'm really digging being an older person.
Yeah.
You want to speak to that for a second? Because it can really be good.
Being older.
Yeah.
It is actually, I think when I think about me being younger, I don't miss it. In this,
Mm-mm.
like when I was a kid, I was in such a hurry to grow up. It's like, oh gosh, I wonder what it's going to be like when I'm, 20 or something like that. And I just felt like that day would never come. And then, I remember when I was 20 thinking about what's life going to be like when I'm 40, I'm thinking, oh gosh, that's like forever. That'll never happen. And lo and behold, now I'm 52. And I look back on it, and there's a lot of good that happened and all of that. But I think there was a couple of things. There's something about like passing time and then, realistically looking at it, it's like, I only have so much time left on this planet,
Mm-hmm.
20 years, 30. If I'm like my mom, who's probably going to live till she's 1,000, maybe I have 40. If I'm lucky, she's 96. That would make me 92 in 40 years. Most of us will be really fortunate to live that long. But I think when you look
Especially
at
if
it,
we're healthy.
yeah, especially
You
if you're
see
healthy,
people live that
he
old and
is.
they're like bedridden, and it's just like, oh God, I don't want to live like that. That's
Oh,
terrible.
he's extremely healthy, but it's like I
Yeah.
think there's something about being older, being comfortable with who you are, which I think comes with age and maturity, because they're probably, like most, they say when you reach a certain age, you just say, screw it. You don't care what anybody thinks anymore.
Yeah.
You pretty much speak your mind, not to be rude or anything like that. But if somebody asks you what you think about this, that, and the other, there's a freedom in being older and not having to worry about meeting expectations from other people. You just speak your mind. Like my mom has absolutely no filter whatsoever, none. So, people, you watch the videos, think your mom is so sweet. She is sweet. But if you ever want an honest answer, you might not want to ask my mom.
Right. Okay, so let's talk about moms. Since I share a home with my mom, we bought a home together. Your mom had you at a little bit of an older age,
He was 44, yeah.
especially for back in the 70s. That was,
Yeah.
my mom was 26, and I remember kids saying, "Your mom is so old," and I
Yeah,
was like,
I was
"Yeah."
a surprise child. So I was born 8.5 years, because I'm the youngest of 8. So I was
Oh wow.
Yeah, she
Okay.
had her first kid when she was 16, and she had her last me at 44. And I was born 8.5 years after the previous youngest. So while I have 8 siblings, I really only grew up in a house of 3. So the oldest,
Interesting.
the
Okay.
oldest in my family, which is one of my sisters, Ernestine, she lives out in Chicago. She's actually old enough to be my mom.
Oh
She
wow.
turned 80. Yeah,
Wow, fascinating. So
yeah.
we've had really different experiences in that respect. I'm an only child.
Mhm.
But so your other siblings live around there where you are?
Yeah, we're kind of scattered all over the country, but I do have a brother and a sister that live here in California. A
Okay.
brother, who's the next youngest to me. He's 8.5 years older than I am, and he lives over in Santa Cruz, which is like about
Mhm.
2 hours
I
away.
love Santa Cruz.
And then one of
That
my sisters,
city
who's
has a
the youngest,
piece of my heart for sure. I
yeah.
love Santa Cruz. Yeah.
And then one of my sisters, who's the youngest sister of my sisters, she lives over in Soledad, which is like 3-4 hours. It's like it's literally out in the middle of nowhere. There's
Inland?
Soledad out in California.
Right, but is it inland in
Yeah,
California? Yeah,
yeah,
okay.
yeah,
I
yeah.
never went inland.
Yeah,
That's
there's
terrible, but I did.
when I say there's nothing in Soledad, I literally mean I drove out there to visit her like about a year ago or so, because she had some medical issues. And you drive out there, and like parts of California we're talking about, it's farmland, there's nothing out there. So
Yeah.
this is one of those little towns, and the big draw, this is not an exaggeration, but the big draw with Soledad is that it has a maximum security prison.
Boy,
Yeah,
yeah.
so there's like, you go and there's stretches of just desert and nothing, and then out in the middle of nowhere is a Soledad prison, which you can see it from the freeway. It's huge, and there's like a couple of grocery stores, and there's a decent sized residential area, and there's a school out there. I think the population is like 15 or 20,000 people, something like that.
that's a decent sized town then.
And yeah, you know,
I mean, there are towns that
but
have like
that's it.
1,000 people.
Yeah,
So, oh, or do they count the prison people, the
I don't know.
inmates?
I have no idea.
Could make a big difference, couldn't it?
Yeah, I guess, but yeah, it's a
Yeah.
there's nothing out there. So, but I'm the
Wow.
closest. My mom lives. She lives 2 doors down from me. So,
I read one of your recent comments. It was funny. Your mom was talking and the TV was going on the background. You probably know where I'm going with this. And I was thinking, God, that TV's loud. I wish I could hear her better. And then I thought to myself, would I want to tell my mom to turn the TV down? Hell to the no.
nope,
And somebody
not touching it.
commented, could you get your mom to the TV, turn the TV down? And your response was, you do it.
Pretty much, yeah. I'm not touching that one. You know, every once, and I think that every time I sit down, because you know she's older, and you know she's actually deaf in one ear.
My mom is too. Yeah.
It was actually a side effect of me being born. When I was born during labor, she just, for whatever reason, lost the hearing in one ear. And so she hears perfectly fine out of the other one. And she actually has a harder time hearing if people shout. But
Really?
if you talk quietly, she hears everything in the room. But for some reason, she has the TV up, you know, to 11. So I'll come inside and she's watching the TV. I'm like, oh man, I know I'm going to get some comments about the TV being too loud. So, but it's like, I'm not going to go, hey, mom, you turn off the TV? Because, you know, mom likes to watch her Price is Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just do my best to make it part of the video so people get it, you know.
Yeah. My mom watches the reality shows.
Oh, I hate those.
I know. And it's like, it's a lesson. Living with my mom as an adult has been a big lesson in how to be a good human, really. I think for both of us, because we both, I mean, I can't speak about mothers and sons because I'm not one and I don't have one, but for mothers and daughters, I think there's this big thing that daughters pick up the bad habits of the mothers that the mothers don't see in themselves, but then they see it in the daughter and they call it out in the daughter, and the daughter's like, but you do that too. And the mother's like, I do not. And if I do, it's because I've seen it from you. And then the daughter's like, oh my God. And it's this big, like, that often, especially in our society where things don't get sorted out, people just retreat to their corners. People die with it in that space often, usually. And I would have, if I had not been forced because of proximity to work this out. And so I'm wondering if you have had a similar situation, you know, not the mother-daughter thing, obviously, but in terms of having difficulty that you've overcome and that has helped you be a better person by dealing with an elder, in this case, your mother, and previously your father or stepfather as well.
You know, I have to admit, like I said, I love both my parents to death. And me and my stepdad, I never knew my birth father. My stepdad was my dad from the time I was like 7 years old up until he passed away a couple years ago. And we were always kind of hit and miss, you know, especially when I was younger and even a little bit when I was older, and, you know, and he was still around. And it wasn't till maybe like the last couple of years before he got his diagnosis, and especially after he got his diagnosis and before he passed, that I realized I didn't really know him. I mean, I knew him, but I didn't know him because he was really gruff. He was not abusive. I don't want to paint that picture or anything like that at all. He was a really good guy, but he grew up really tough. He was abandoned by his own parents, basically. His like me, his dad, he never knew his own birth father because his birth father didn't want to have anything to do with him. His mother didn't want him and sent him to go live with his grandparents, I believe, who also didn't want him. And then when his mother got remarried, his mother married into a rich family. And my dad had a couple of brothers, actually. And so when his mom remarried, his mom and his, proposed new stepdad took all the other kids in except him because they didn't want him. And so he grew up, in a sense, really with a lot of anger and a lot of hurt.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like he didn't know how to accept the fact, or he had a hard time with trust and showing genuine love or affection to people because it was never really returned to him growing up. So as a kid, 7 or 8-year-old me, when I would come home from school, like his love language was confrontation because that's all he ever knew. And it's like I say, he was not abusive. He never beat us or anything like that at all. But it was like, if I came home from school crying because I got bullied, his love language was suck it up, be tough. When you're going to be a man, when you're going to do this, And so, this is all through like my childhood, teenage years. And some days I could handle it. Some days, we'd be like this with each other. And even as an adult, like, he would, poke me about certain things. And, gosh, when you're 30 years old, Joe, when are you going to grow up and, do something, besides music? When are you going to have do this, that, or the other? And I'd be like, man, like, dude, like I've been putting up with this crap for, so many years. It's like, I love him, but there were parts of me that used to like to see him and hang around him, but there are also parts of me that when the doorbell rang,
yeah, I know.
Gosh.
Yeah.
And I remember it was a conversation with my mom, because my mom used to have the same frustrations with him. And I'd never heard any of this stuff before about his childhood. My mom used to always write him about stuff, different stuff, about trying
They were married when he passed. Is that correct? They were still together?
Yeah. They were still together. Yeah. Matter of fact, a lot of the videos when I started doing the Fridays with Mom videos was actually during his diet when he was really sick with cancer. And I actually started to do like a Thursday or Wednesday with Pops. But by that point, he was so sick, I didn't want to put him on the camera like that.
Right.
So the earlier episodes of Friday were filmed around, So, but she was frustrated with him one day, and she had said they were arguing. She said something to the effect of, "Well, I'm just doing the best that I can." And she said that he had realized at that point that he was doing the best that he could, just because of the circumstance that he grew up. So it's like he was trying to show affection and show support in the best ways that he knew how to, because he didn't know any other way.
Right.
And that to me, I was just like, okay, wow. So now when he's at the door, it made me look at everything completely different with him now. And I was like, okay. So now when he comes to the door and he's poking at me for this, that, and the other, it's not that he really feels that way. He's trying to spend time with me. And when I looked at it that way, it completely changed my relationship with him. And, I started to, when he got diagnosed with cancer, I was there at the doctor with him, and I was able to support him and just see, him go through that. And then, for me to be there for him in that way and to show him the support and the love that he never got as a kid, his child being able to do that for him was probably, the biggest blessing that I've ever had in my life. Just to watch him watch him go through it. And it still gets to me to this day. That's like, oh my God, somebody to grow up so horrible that he did, but to have the positive effect on my life that he did, and to not even know it. And to be able to give back to him in such a small way. Like I said, I have 2 kids. And sometimes they frustrate the heck out of me,
Right.
But I think, as weird as it may sound, for all of the early grief that my dad gave to me, I thank him for that, because it let me know, again, going back full circle to the whole church thing, it's like, I love my dad to death, but I don't want to be the same father that he was. Not that he was a bad guy.
Right.
But I think if I were to ask him today, if he were around, he'd admit that he made some mistakes. And I can clearly look back at the way that I, was a father to some of my kids earlier and totally realize that there were some things that I wish I could do different, that I could take back.
Yeah.
But I didn't know any better at the time, but I do now.
Right.
So sometimes I'm okay. Sometimes I feel like, okay, yeah, that was pretty crappy.
Right.
But you live and learn. So yeah, it's like dealing with my mom, and my mom is sweet. She's 96 years old. I'm still slightly scared of her.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, your mom can cut you down like nobody.
Oh,
in my experience. I mean, my God. And then she'll be like, what? I didn't say anything. And I'm like, you just devastated me. You just brought up that
Yeah.
thing when I was 5. I mean, it's just like there's that connection that like both parties I don't think are even aware of that psychic connection and that ability to push
Yeah.
buttons.
Yeah.
That is just like you said, it's such a gift to be at our age because it's really difficult when you're younger and you're dealing with the young person shit of life.
Yeah.
You get to that level of understanding with your elder.
Yeah.
In my experience, it's only been since I've been like in my late 40s and older that I've been able to come to this good place with my mom.
Yeah.
And my dad, I just had to write off in my 20s.
Yeah.
He was full-blown racist, misogynist, hateful fellow.
Yeah.
And so I want to make it clear to anyone who's listening, who's thinking, oh man, maybe I'm being a bad kid. Maybe I should give my parent more grace. Maybe, but maybe not.
Yeah.
That's a personal thing. And when you know, you know.
And this may or may not be a good example, but I have an old Pontiac that I drive, call it Pontiac, the 61 Pontiac, and most people look at the picture and goes, oh my gosh, that car is awesome, or whatever. And when I first bought that car, I bought it for $500 and it was sitting in a junkyard. It didn't run, had a crack in the windshield, didn't even have the same paint job. When I brought it home, a bunch of people told me, what are you going to do with that piece of junk? And the only thing I could think of was what I thought and what I knew it could be at that particular time. And I've had it for about 15 years now. And it's just been 15 years of spending an hour of maybe one day going out there and cleaning out all the crap on the seats. And in another hour, I'm changing like spark plugs. Another hour, this little thing after just kind of whittling it down and working on it and working on it. And relationships with parents or friends or significant others or whoever it may be, very rarely do I find it's just you say one thing and all of a sudden the light bulb goes off and they're a changed person or you're a changed person. Because somebody took the time to spend time with me when I was a jerk, when I was a jackass, which I've very much been in my life.
Sure.
I've been that guy people didn't want to be around, and had that aha moment where I'm thinking, is that how people see me? And sometimes it just takes people, some people never get there, and that's very true. Some people, it just takes a little bit longer than it took me or it took you to get there. And it's just understanding that not everybody's in the same place going the same speed or even the same direction. But yeah, so when I started thinking about it that way, it changed a lot of what I was willing to put up with and who I was willing to have around me. And it changed my relationship with my mom and my dad too as well. And just how much time are you willing to give it? How much effort are you willing to put up with, and what are you willing to tolerate? At a given time, because that may change from day to day.
Yeah, it may. Yeah, and I mean, absolutely, absolutely to everything you said. I so much agree. But I do want to reiterate that it is okay to cut off a family member who is toxic.
Yeah. I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying.
Yeah, because I picture myself hearing that when I was like 20, thinking, okay, I should try with this terrible, horrible dad who says horrible, horrible things to me every time I'm around. So no, I want people to know they have permission, but if there's any glimmer, go for it and work for it because it's worth it.
I'll add this: if you have to choose between your own mental health and happiness, as opposed to putting up with something that's negativity or that somebody is adding to your life,
right?
Maybe that's not a choice you need to make. Just
right. And if it is, choose yourself.
Exactly. Choose yourself until you are adequately able to handle it.
Right.
And that may be a day, that may be a week, that may be 10 years. For me, just like I said, my social circle has changed a ton in the last 15 years or so. And there are some people that I've cut out that I don't dislike anybody, but I just know I don't have the energy, the capacity to hang around and tolerate that anymore. And some people it is social acceptance, but at a distance.
Right.
Very few people do I allow to speak to me or speak into my life where it's like we have total opposing views. Like if we have total opposing views, but I respect you as a person, but we're just at opposite ends of the spectrum. You know, I'll call and ask and say, hey, tell me your thought process on X, Y, and Z. I may not agree, and knowingly I may ask, and knowing I don't agree, but I just want to hear their thought process going into it, so I can better understand where they're coming from. I still don't agree, but at least I understand where you're coming from. You know.
And it sounds like, from what you're describing, that is a really cultivated approach to protecting your energy.
Yeah.
Which I am all about and encourage everyone to do.
Yeah. Protect your energy, but also, you know, I would say educate yourself to, you know, no matter if it's social issues or political issues or family issues, relationship issues. Because I think in order to protect your energy, you have to understand what you're protecting.
Oh, yes.
And to understand and to understand your own energy, you have to understand what you believe and also fully understand what you don't believe and why you don't believe it. And the only way that you'll understand that is if you're willing to sit down and hear somebody else's opposing point of view.
Absolutely.
You know,
Yeah.
so, you know, somebody comes to me and this is just a true example, because this is a conversation I had with actually one of the guys in my group that we had to just part ways with just fairly recently. You know, a lot of my disagreements, you know, come from social settings, you know, where I had a guy that played bass in the group with me, and he was talking about, and we've had several conversations about this, but, you know, he was like, well, you know, Black people only make up 13% of the population, but they, you know, commit 50% of the crime. I'm like, that is absolutely not true. And he's like, well, you know, I was listening to this podcaster, and Charlie Kirk was the guy he cited who talks about this. I'm like, okay, first of all, Charlie Kirk dropped out of City College. He has no, and there's nothing wrong with that, you know, but however, he's trying to speak on authority on a subject that he has not studied.
Right. He's just pulling a figure out of the air that
he's pulling a figure out of the air.
That feels correct to him.
It feels correct to him. And so he asked me, he's like, well, how do you know this? I said, David, because I just leaked his name. Sorry. I said, you know, David, because I just looked up, and it took me all of 2 minutes. It's like, if you want to know the statistics on who's in prison, how about you look at the website for the Federal Bureau of Prisons, because they keep, you know, official statistics. You can go there, check out the About Us, the drop-down menu, go to their statistics, and you can look at everything from age to race to ethnicity to crimes committed, and it'll tell you that white people make up 56% of the prison population. You know what Black people do lead the judicial system in? The amount of false arrests,
right,
and exonerations.
Right. Yeah, I had a similar experience with a fellow. He had been a boyfriend in college and had just become a dear friend who I thought would be just a friend forever. I pictured us at each other's funerals and just, you know. But at the beginning of COVID, he started spouting this stuff about how most white murdered people are murdered by Black strangers. And I was like, what the hell are you, where are you getting this shit? I mean, what?
Yeah.
And just it's true. It's true. You know, and they just get this crazy, and it's like it's just because it feels correct to them.
Yeah.
It feels right to be scared of a Black stranger, and of course, because they murder us. You know, I mean, it's like, just no, it's so maddening.
It is maddening from the standpoint, because it's like, it's not the statistic that they pull and that they make up, it is the fact that it reveals that people want to believe stuff
there
like
you go. Yeah.
And that's more disturbing than anything else, which is, I don't have very many hot buttons that'll instantly set me off at anger, but that's one of them. And the other one is when I hear, and it's probably because I have daughters and a mother and all of that. And I like to believe that I'm not a scholar, but I like to believe I'm a professor of common sense. That, guys that, guys that when they talk badly, and especially if they mistreat women, when I hear about guys, beating on women, or, like now the popular thing to do is to claim that, Kamala Harris, slept her way to the top. And I'm just like, that is so stupid. And I'm not even a woman,
Right.
like, I don't understand how guys, or anybody really, but especially men, can go around spouting off stuff like that. You
Right.
know,
I mean,
it,
if women could sleep their way to the top, there'd be a lot more of us at the top. I guarantee you
well,
that.
I mean, it's like, I mean, really, when you think about the act, and I could go on and on about this on a bunch of different topics. When you think about the actuality of that statement, she slept her way to the top. She was the district attorney, an elected official, by the way,
Right, 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 right,
here in
right.
Oakland. Um,
Right.
Also, an attorney general, district prosecutor is what I meant to say. Sorry.
Well,
So
clearly she slept with all the voters, Joe.
I'm like, really? Like, well, she dated Willie Brown. It's like, is she not allowed to date anybody?
Right, right,
He
right,
was
right,
single. She was single. Is it illegal?
right,
No. So why does this matter? Why does it matter?
right,
You know, and
right.
I don't understand how that translates. But it's that ability. It's that, not the ability, but that mentality of wanting to tear somebody down because you don't like them. I don't know how many times I've seen posts like, well, I just don't like anything she stands for. So then I'll ask, what does she stand for that you don't like? And it doesn't matter that she's a Democrat. It wouldn't matter if she was a Republican. It wouldn't matter if she was, from the Tea Party or the Green Party or whatever. It's just like, I don't think people really think about why they don't, or if they thought about it, they're not willing to admit why they don't like a particular person or a thing, especially when it's political or comes from social circles. Like if you
Right.
say Black Lives Matter, which was a huge thing a few years ago and kind of still is, certain group of people just fly off the handle. All lives matter. It's like, well, nobody said that it didn't, but for some reason you feel a certain way about it. I had a guy say, it's like, all those people, all they do is just burn, loot, and destroy. And it's like, uh, okay, but what's that have to do with Black Lives Matter or Juneteenth? People get
Right.
upset about that. There's only one Independence Day. It's like, is there really?
Mm-hmm.
Was everybody free July 4th?
Right,
you know,
right, right.
and it just seems like we are dealing more with what's underneath in people as opposed to actually what is.
Yeah.
And, it's just getting cloaked and clothed in a bunch of different things, but it's the same movie with a different title, though.
Right,
Uh,
right.
sorry, I can ramble on about a lot of stuff.
No, it's cool. I love talking to you, Joe. We're getting to the near end of our hour, so I do want to return to the fact that my intended audience is people who feel like they're not really people who belong in their life. Like maybe
Yeah.
they're broken, maybe they are just kind of feeling like I'm just going to wait this one out. Maybe better luck next time. This life sucks. I've ruined it. Whatever.
Yeah.
What would you say to that person if you just were sitting down with them? What
I
would
would
you
say,
say?
first of all, I'd say you're not broken. You're just built different, and different is not bad.
Yeah.
And sometimes, well, let me retract that a little bit. Um, if you are broken, if you feel that you are broken, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that I feel like I've been broken in many different ways. Like the day I pulled over to the side of the road, it was just like the people that I felt like I knew and trusted, I realized didn't really care anything about me at that particular point.
Right.
So in that way, I felt like, okay, man, this sucks. I've never been suicidal like you have been. So it's like, I can't really speak to that. I don't know anything about that. I've never been that far down that particular road. So it would be really disingenuous. I don't know if that's the right word. That would be really disingenuous of me to try and say, well, hey,
Right.
God, let me tell you how to feel. It's
Right.
like,
Right. Right.
I'm probably the last person you should probably ask. But what I will say is that, if you feel that way, if you feel, whatever broken is or feels like to you, whatever that may be, if you don't feel like you're wanted or you feel like you're accepted or nobody understands, and this feels like a cliche, and I almost hate to say it, but I think there's a lot of people that feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like in a weird way, like being broken is almost to the point where it's almost normal now. So don't feel bad about that. You know, there have been plenty of nights, even recently, where I go to sleep and I'm frustrated, about
Right.
certain or whatever. That's half the reason. Geez, that's like probably 3/4 of the reason why I go to the gym, because I got something that I'm upset about.
Right.
you know, and you just find ways to personally just find ways to just kind of vent that out.
That's a really good point. And yeah, consider ways. I'm saying to people who might be listening, consider
Yeah.
ways maybe you haven't thought of.
Yeah.
Because I used to know, I'm a very physically clumsy person. I used to live all up in my head and I wasn't embodied at all. And
Yeah.
since I've been on this path of empowering my magical self, I've started roller skating, I've started doing aerial yoga, I've started just freelance dancing, and it's so wonderful. Like Joe said, it's such a venting thing. And please, if you're listening and you're thinking, I can't do that, I'm awkward, I'll look weird, fuck that noise.
Pretty
This
much,
is
yeah.
not about how you look or pleasing anybody else or society or anything. It's not
Yeah.
about going to the gym to lose that extra weight or
Yeah.
about looking hot or fitting into the clothes. No, it's about your sanity and
Yeah.
keeping yourself well. So that, I want to just point that out as you're talking about going to the gym.
7 times out of 10, I go to the gym so I don't hurt anybody.
There you go. Yeah.
And I'm being totally honest. It has become, well, first of all, it started off kind of because I got infatuated with, not infatuated, that's a bad word, but I got fascinated or obsessed by the Marvel movie superhero. I wanted to be Black Panther for Halloween one year. But at
Okay.
the time, I was like, I really was not in shape at all. And I thought, okay, I don't want to be the old guy trying to wear a
Right.
superhero outfit. I kind of wanted to look the part. So that's why I
Uh-huh.
started going. And then I realized it was right around the same time, like a lot of stuff started happening. I realized
Right.
I got a lot of inner anger I need to get. So it became therapy for me, so to speak.
Yeah.
Like the gym has been totally therapeutic. It was when I go, it's like, I don't want to talk to anybody when I'm there. I don't like, please do not make eye contact with me, you know, and I try and be polite, you know, but it's like, I'm
Right.
not.
I remember when your neighbors showed up at your gym. I don't
Oh,
know how
God.
that went, but yeah.
Like, no, please. Like, I'm more than happy to stand up front, but not here, not now. Because, like, no, please don't bother me.
Yeah.
Don't look at me. Please stay away from me here. This is my decompression, self-evaluation, contemplative time. I'm trying to get out as much aggression as I can so I don't accidentally snap on the wrong person at the wrong time. You know?
Right.
So,
What it sounds like you're coming, and you've said this in several different ways about different things, is that self-knowledge.
yeah.
And knowing who you are and what you stand for, what you want out of life, what makes you happy, what doesn't make you happy. And a lot of people go through life thinking they know that, but they don't.
Yeah.
And that's one of the most wonderful things to me about being an older person, is that I'm finally really uncovering that stuff. And 20 years ago, I would have said, oh, I know all that. I know all that. I didn't know all that.
One of the things that I have found that has really given me like some joy is and I really do. I love to see other people succeed. I really do. And if I can help with that, and maybe that's something for somebody else too, because if you feel like you don't have anything, and he's like, you know, gosh, I was talking with somebody the other day and they just feel like, you know, she told me, it's like, I just feel like such a failure in life. And I was like, you know, don't we all? You know,
Yeah.
who is actually really winning in life? But sometimes it's like, it can be really rewarding to see and help somebody else succeed, you know, like, which is part of the reason why I love the 3 good things during the middle of the week that I do every week. I love hearing those stories about people, you know, hey, I got a job, or hey, I got this, or I'm going on vacation. I'm like, that is so cool. That's very, very cool. You know, sometimes it makes me feel better because a lot of times sometimes when I make those videos, I'm not really in the mood to do it, you know, but I try and find ways to just keep tossing it out there and just trying to, you know, add a little bit of good out there, you know, and some days that's all I got.
Well, it's plenty, Joe. I appreciate it. Thank you very much for being here and for talking with me.
Thank you for taking it.
Yeah, where can people find you? We didn't even talk about your band. I'm sorry. I feel remiss. Your band is called Run with Patience. Where does that name come from?
It actually comes from the Bible.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was not something that it kind of happened by accident. We were actually searching for a band name, and this was like 12 years ago. And I was at my mom's house and we were kind of joking about it. We were like, because we were contemplating Run with Scissors or something like that.
That's what I thought of. Yeah.
And then we actually seriously contemplated the name Cheeto Residue, just because it was stupid.
That's silly.
And we were thinking, hey, we could write songs called Stuck on You, you know, because orange
right.
Cheeto.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
So we were just like, oh gosh. And then my mom had like one of those huge, like old school Bibles on her desk. at the house that she used to live in previously back in the Bay Area. And it was like one of those big, huge red letter editions. So I was just fidgeting and I opened it up. And it was actually a Bible that my grandmother, actually my great grandmother, had given to my grandmother. And then my grandmother passed it down to my mom. And just a little while ago, she gave it to me, and it's on my desk out front. But it on the little inscription where it says, "I'm giving this Bible to so and so," it was a note from my grandmother to my mom saying, "To Ruthie, my daughter, I love you so much. May you always run with patience." And I thought,
Oh, I love that. That's so
holy
fun.
cow! And I was like, that's it right there. And it actually is a verse in the Bible, but that's actually where I discovered it, because I was like, oh, holy cow! I remember looking at that and I was like, that is the sweetest thing I've ever thought of. And I was like, or not thought of, but clever seen. I was like,
Right.
how cool is that? And looking at my great grandmother's signature and my grandmother's signature right before that. Now my mom just wrote a little note saying the same thing, and she passed it down to me. And I thought, this is cool.
So
So
that right there is a magic moment. That's magic.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So there's plenty of magic in the Bible. There's magic everywhere.
everywhere. Yeah.
All right, Joe. So people can find you on TikTok, Facebook, I think, Instagram. I
I have a
know.
Facebook page, but it's like, honestly, I hate Facebook. It is an absolute
I know. It's like a
cesspool.
ghost land there. It's like the people who are there are so angry. Oh,
I don't
yeah.
do Twitter. I don't do Instagram. I mean, I do Instagram. I have an Instagram page, which is probably where I'm there the most, besides the clock app. So you can, but if you're looking for me personally, yeah, you can find it on Instagram. You can probably find me on Facebook, but I'm very rarely. I do keep music page there. The band
Okay.
Run with Ellison, Run with Patience has its own separate one. I have a personal one
Okay.
there, but
Cool.
I'm almost never on it. You can download the band's music on Amazon and Spotify and Apple Music. Pretty much everywhere music is streamed, you'll find us. We have a really cruddy YouTube page that I need to update that I haven't done since, probably the Reagan administration.
Boy, there was no YouTube back then. I
I know.
remember that.
And actually, you can even find a lot of our music on Instagram. Like if you ever make videos and you
Yeah.
want to add like music to it, we're on there too. And
Oh, okay, cool.
and as well as like the clock app and TikTok and all of that, we have music there as well. Aside from what I post, you can actually search our music on TikTok and it pulls up there.
Oh, cool. Awesome.
I'm getting ready to release an album here in January of 2025 and hitting the road again in November to Eastern Europe. We'll be going back there to Poland and Romania and Hungary. And then just yesterday, I was asked to go and to make our first trip into South America. We'll be going to Brazil next year, and probably in the summer months, and then back to Western Europe, which we spend a lot of time overseas there doing that too, though. So
That is so cool. Yeah, I've seen your videos over there, and it's always just such a lovely environment. And yay, that's great. I'm happy for you that you're getting to do that.
yeah, it's fun, and part of me really enjoys just like the music is almost secondary because I just love, like I said, I have a love-hate relationship with people. I do love being around people, especially if we're out on the road and traveling. I love meeting the new people, and because just like a certain connection that like music is a universal language. So no matter what you, especially when we're done playing, people always come up and people just tell you all about their life, and I'm always amazed by it. I'm like, people have told me everything from like, stories about their parents, and because a lot of times like the music that I write is just about my own life experiences, whether it be, faith or just my own personal experiences with one of my sisters or my mom or my dad, or just me being frustrated about life in general. As a matter of fact, I have a song coming out called Run Black Boy Run, about the time when I was about 8 years old and a group of white kids chased me around and told me they were going to hang me from a tree.
Oh God.
I made, talk about making lemonade out of lemons. I just decided I'm going to write about it. So which is something previously been hesitant to do, but in my newfound boldness, I'm like, screw it, I'm going to write about it.
There you go. Yeah.
People get offended about it. They get offended about it. It just happens. But people have always shared with me life stories about things like that. Just from me playing guitar up on the stage and singing about this, that, or the other, and it's such a unifying device. I just, that is the thing that I love most about traveling.
Yeah.
Not that people buy your album and please, brother needs to eat, buy my album, please buy a t-shirt. But however, that aside, it's just, I always love the connections that I'm able to have with people because of that. I've met people in, all corners of the earth that I didn't, 15 years ago, you'd have told me that they're playing your music in Japan, Joe. I'm like, really? Like, yeah,
Right,
I'd have probably laughed at you, you know.
right, right.
And then, 15 years later, not that I'm a huge rock star and I'm not even remotely famous, but it's just, I've just been pretty lucky in that regards. I don't take it for granted either.
Yeah.
Especially at 52, I keep thinking, I don't know how much longer I'm going to be able to do this, but I'll do it till the wheels fall off and then, find something else to do.
Well, I'm thinking steel wheels. Back then, when it was the Rolling Stones tour, when we were in high school, right? Steel wheels, and
Yeah,
people used to joke about it back then, calling it the steel wheelchair tour.
yeah.
They were probably like our age, and look at them; they're still going.
They're
So,
still going. Aerosmith is on their last tour now. They're like in their mid 70s now.
yeah, yeah,
Grief.
yeah, yeah. Okay, Joe, thank you so much. I really appreciate this.
All right, thank you so much.
Isn't that great? I just love Joe Ellison. He's such a gentleman, such a kind person, such a big-hearted guy. Really encourage you to follow him on the social media channels because he's a joy. He's a lot of fun. Speaking of joy and a lot of fun, next week my guest is the British mega witch Kellyanne Maddox. She is the author of Rebel Witch and also have a new book that we'll talk about next week during the show. I hope that you find a way this week to empower your magical self. Get a copy of my book if you are interested in getting a little bit closer to sovereignty and to your joy. It's available on Amazon in paperback and on Kindle. In the meantime, please empower your magical self, and I'll see you back here next week for Kellyanne Maddox. Bye.